A licensed Oklahoma operator just had their license suspended by OMMA. Products were found on site that were never reported to authorities. Not a warning. Not a fine. A full suspension that stops every dollar of revenue until it is resolved. And here is the part that should worry you. This was not an illegal operation. This was a licensed operator with a compliance gap. If you think that cannot happen to your operation, it is time to reconsider that assumption. This is the kind of news that makes every operator stop and take stock. Because if it happened to one licensed business, it can happen to any of them. And the fear is not just about the suspension itself. It is about everything that leads up to it. The uncertainty. The lost revenue. All of it stems from a compliance gap that could have been prevented. Stay with us because we are also covering Governor Kevin Stitt's public push to shut down the industry and what the newly released state research data says about where this program is heading. Two major stories hitting at the same time, and both of them affect your license and your bottom line directly. Before we get into it, if you never want to miss OMMA compliance news, please support us by giving us a like and comment. Be sure to subscribe and turn on the notifications. It's free and really helps. Here is what we are hearing. A licensed Oklahoma operator had their license suspended after OMMA inspectors found product that had not been reported through the state tracking system. This is not a minor paperwork issue. This is a direct enforcement action, and the industry is taking notice across the board. When OMMA walks into a facility and finds product that is not logged in the system, they do not issue a warning and walk away. They take immediate action. In this case, that action was a license suspension. The operator is now unable to conduct business until the issue is resolved. No sales, no production, no revenue, and all because product was not reported through the required system. Here is what every operator needs to understand. The tracking system is the single source of truth for compliance in Oklahoma. If something is in your facility and it is not in the system, it might as well not exist from a regulatory perspective. And OMMA is checking. They are looking at what is on your shelves and comparing it to what is in the system. If there is a gap, you have a serious problem. Think about how easy it is for a discrepancy to happen in a busy operation. A transfer comes in and a case gets logged as 12 units instead of 13. A sample is sent for testing and never removed from active inventory. A customer return is processed, but the product stays logged as sold instead of being returned to available stock. Each of these scenarios happens every day at facilities across the state. And each one creates a gap that OMA could find during an inspection. The common thread in every one of these scenarios is that they are preventable. Each gap exists because someone had to manually enter the data or reconcile inventory by hand. And when humans are involved in tracking, mistakes happen. The question is whether those mistakes will cost you your license. Now think about what happens when an inspector finds one discrepancy. They do not stop there. They dig deeper. One unreported product leads them to check everything. And once that deeper audit starts, every gap in your records becomes a problem. The initial issue triggers a cascade that can expose months of small mistakes. We are hearing that this enforcement action is putting other operators on edge. The question everyone is asking is whether OMMA is stepping up inspections across the board, or if this was a targeted action based on a tip. The answer matters because it determines how urgently you need to get your compliance house in order. Here is a simple test to know where you stand. Compare your physical inventory to what is in the tracking system right now. Not last week. Not last month. Right now. If there is any difference at all, you have a gap that OMMA would find. The truth is that most operators have some degree of inventory discrepancy. These small gaps add up, and they are exactly what OMMA is looking for. One unreported product on the shelf during a visit can trigger a deeper audit that reveals more issues. And once that audit starts, everything is on the table. This story is still developing. We are tracking it and will update you as more information comes out. But the key takeaway right now is clear. If your inventory is not perfectly matched to what is in the tracking system, you are exposed. Think about what that exposure means in practical terms. Every day your inventory is out of alignment with the system is a day you could get a visit from OMMA that ends with a suspension notice. It is not a question of if they will check. It is a question of when. And when they do, Every gap they find becomes a problem you have to solve while your business sits idle. Here is what we do know for sure. When a suspension like this happens, the operator has to correct every discrepancy before they can resume operations. That means going through every product in the facility and matching it against the system. It is a time-consuming process that stops all revenue while it happens, and there is no guarantee of when the suspension will be lifted. Next up, there is more news out of the state that operators need to pay attention to. The 2026 Oklahoma Program Research Study data has been released. We are hearing chatter that this report contains detailed data on patient numbers, product sales volumes, and compliance metrics that regulators will use to shape the next phase of enforcement. This report matters because it becomes the official record of how the program is performing. If the data shows strong patient numbers and a well-functioning market, regulators have less reason to push for restrictive changes. But if the numbers show problems, those problems become justification for new rules that affect every operator in the state. Some of the early indicators we are hearing about point to a market that is maturing. A maturing market often comes with tighter oversight. As the program settles in, regulators shift focus from getting it started to tightening compliance requirements. That is exactly what we are seeing play out right now. Here is what operators need to watch for in this data. If the research numbers show a drop in patient participation, expect regulators to justify more restrictions as protecting the program. If it shows compliance issues, expect tougher enforcement across the board. The data is not just information, it is ammunition for policymakers. Patient numbers, compliance rates, and testing data. These are the metrics that show up in reports like this, and they all matter because they influence how regulators see the industry. A small shift in any of these numbers can be the difference between a routine year and a wave of new restrictions that affect every operator. Now for the story that has operators talking more than anything else. Next up, Governor Kevin Stitt has made headlines with his comments about the medical program, and his position could not be clearer. He wants it shut down. Stitt did not say he wants to improve the program. He did not say he wants to reform it. He said he wants to shut it down completely. Those are his exact words, and operators across the state are listening closely. Can he actually do that? Shutting down a voter-approved program is not simple. It would require legislative action and significant political capital. But the fact that the governor is making this statement publicly changes the entire landscape. It signals to regulators that they have political cover to be aggressive. It signals to opponents that now is the time to push for stricter rules. And it signals to operators that the ground beneath them is shifting. Make no mistake about it. When a governor talks this way about a regulated industry, regulators listen. They feel empowered to act more aggressively because they know the political leadership supports a harder line. And that means operators can expect more inspections, stricter audits, and less room for error. Operators in other states have seen what happens when political pressure against the industry increases. Enforcement gets stricter. Rule changes come faster. The burden of staying compliant gets heavier. Oklahoma operators are watching this play out in real time and wondering if they are next. The operators we are hearing from are frustrated and angry. They invested in their facilities. They paid their licensing fees. They followed the rules. And now the top elected official in the state is calling for the end of the industry they built. That is a betrayal of trust that will not be forgotten. Here is the thread that ties all three of these stories together. The license suspension proves that OMA is enforcing rules with consequences that can put you out of business. The research study provides the data that regulators will use to justify whatever comes next. And the governor's comments create the political environment in which tougher enforcement is not only possible but expected. All three forces are pushing in the same direction. That direction is harder conditions for every licensed operator in Oklahoma. Think about the position that puts you in. You are running a business that serves patients, creates jobs, and generates tax revenue. You are following the rules. And yet the person in the highest office in the state is calling for your industry to be eliminated. That is not a small thing. It changes how you plan for the future, because suddenly the ground you are standing on does not feel stable anymore. So here is the question. Is OMMA's enforcement approach protecting the integrity of the program, or is it creating an environment where operators cannot survive? We have seen a license suspension. We have heard a governor call for shutting everything down. We have research data that will shape what comes next. Where do you stand on what is happening in Oklahoma right now? The reality is that while all of these big political and regulatory forces play out, the day-to-day compliance burden does not go away. Your inventory still needs to match the system, your reports still need to be filed, and every day you rely on manual processes is another day you are exposed to the exact kind of enforcement action we just covered. If you want to avoid costly fines and shutdowns, contact us using the link below to find out how Trish can automate your compliance daily. Have you had an OMMA inspection this year? Tell us what happened in the comments. Read the full breakdown of today's news at ai-antidote.us. The link is in the description.